Well, would you look at that? The next phase of the agenda is now being slowly unveiled to the public. Of course, we knew this was coming because we've been talking about digital immunity IDs for a while now. This video was shared by the World Economic Forum recently on their Twitter account. So, they're going to tell us how this CovidPass app will help to revive global travel and large events during the pandemic. So, no going back to freedom until you conform to this new abnormal world of tighter top-down control. Notice that they do the same thing that we've seen in other similar propaganda videos, the upbeat, happy xylophone music that's designed to put people into a kind of trance about the messages they're seeing. So here's the new dystopian world. A woman at the airport screening, she hands in her passport, she's got a mask on, and the two people behind her in the queue, they also have masks on. One of them is wearing a face shield, because people are easily controlled by media propaganda, of course. The new face of the human race is a mouthless, muzzled submissive, as Peter Hitchens described it. The text reads, enabling people to visit countries, conferences, and sports events safely. They already can, thanks to the power of the human immune system and herd immunity, but apparently now we're all supposed to be enslaved to our fear of disease and germs. Users will have their blood screened at an approved CovidPass laboratory. Again, users will have their blood screened at an approved CovidPass laboratory. So now they literally want your blood. Again, the technocrats behind this crisis have forced the populace into compliance with masks. You can't get on public transport or go to the grocery store without them in some places. Then the slippery slope leads to you can't travel or attend public gatherings without a health passport identification system of some kind. The final destination is that you can't do any of these things without a vaccine. A person's vaccine status will then be tied to their digital ID, which is coming down the line, as Bill Gates has said.
Eventually, what we'll have to have is certificates of who's a recovered person, who's a vaccinated person, because you don't want people moving around the world. So eventually there will be sort of this digital immunity proof that will help facilitate the global reopening up.
I've discussed all of this in a previous video called Digital Immunity Passports Are Coming. If it wasn't bad enough that there's situations where travelers are quarantined upon arrival in some countries and coerced into being tested, now they want your blood as well. So it says, before being issued with a secure QR health code via their phone, thankfully I don't use a smartphone, but nevertheless it looks like it's going to become mandatory or something. Notice the use of appealing sounding words like secure, designed to sort of instill confidence in the viewer. This entire scam has been built upon sacrificing freedom for more so-called security. But actually, all that's happening is that we're losing more and more of our freedoms, and we're being placed into a digital prison where our entire lives are controlled, monitored, and regulated, and the prison doors are being locked tightly and securely. So you're basically being made to feel safe and secure in your digital prison cell. And then it says, which they can present at airline check-in, borders, or event entrances. The digital passport doesn't include tracing technology, but of course, there's a permanent record of where you've used the digital passport in every location and destination, so what exactly would you call that? Preserving data privacy while saving time and money. Such muddying of the waters. The data is presumably going to be in the hands of these healthcare agencies, private companies, and the government. I mean, that's who you're giving it to. Increasingly, we're having to ask our governments for permission to do almost anything because they're becoming the prison guards. They keep doing this, and the public keeps falling for it. Information that was previously none of the government's business, like in this case, details of our blood records, are now expected to be given to authorities. And then you're being told that those same authorities will keep the data safe. Such personal information is safer if no one else has their hands on it except my own doctor. Authorities are now demanding that you hand it over and telling you that you can basically trust them, right? You can trust them with your information. You're being told that you can entrust your private health information to the government, just as you're being told to trust the mainstream media, politicians, and so-called health experts. Why should you trust them? Why should we believe they'll keep us safe when we're not safe from them? The government just took all your rights and freedoms from you, and now we're supposed to believe, when they mandate all these kinds of immunity passports, that it's all in our best interests? This was the plan all along, to use the pandemic as an excuse to bring about what James Corbett has described as a population control grid. As for saving time and money, well, the COVID hoax was the biggest time and money waster of all, as it crashed the global economy and put millions of people out of work and destroyed many SMEs. The elites create the problem, which generates a reaction, and then they provide the solution, which just so happens to further increase their authority, power, and control while reducing our freedoms. CovidPass's creators say that by using blood test data, it's 100% reliable and could ensure only non-infectious people travel across borders. But how many tests would you need to get? Would you need to get tests on an ongoing basis or something? The test is presumably just finding antibodies for coronaviruses, but apparently a person could test positive some other time, so you're only as good as your last test anyway. But regardless, this is all very disturbing. The future looks like one where humans see themselves as a constant potential biohazard to each other, and they obsess about being infectious to the next disease that the government and the media tell us to be afraid of. So divisions will probably form between the so-called infectious and non-infectious people. And as you can see here, these two travelers are still required to wear masks. Why? I thought that if a person got the all clear and they were approved for travel with something like CovidPass, that they wouldn't have to do that anymore. But it seems that the plan was never to really get rid of masks under any circumstances, right? It's all a social norm. It's the new norm, right? Muzzles are supposed to be here to stay, it seems, in order to keep humanity in a state of physical and spiritual subjugation, all part of the secular Sharia and the new abnormal, while monitoring access to concerts, conferences, and pilgrimages. And that's really what it's all about. Monitoring access, controlling what people can and cannot do, who they can be with, how many people are allowed to congregate together, even in private. There's a toll at every turn in your life. We're moving into a technocracy where, in order to do anything, to go to the pub, go to work, go on public transport, attend a sporting event, go shopping, buying food, we have to access and then receive permission from a global digital control grid. The excuse today is COVID-19. Someday in the future, it'll probably be another virus or a bioweapon or whatever. The justification may change, but the end result is population control and infringement of human freedoms. It uses real-time automated epidemiological data and blockchain technology that could help countries manage future waves of COVID-19 or other epidemics. Wow, it's almost like they can see the future without the need for a total lockdown. So there it is. Remember lockdown, plebs? You hated that, didn't you? Forced isolation and quarantine was painful. Remember 2020? Wasn't that an awful year of your life? Remember how we ruined your life and took away your freedoms? Remember the loneliness, the job losses, the friends and family you couldn't see, the holidays you had to cancel, the elderly relatives you couldn't be with in their final hours, the funerals you couldn't attend, the social life you lost? Remember how depressing and joyless it was? How scary it was? You wouldn't want to go back to that, would you? Well, good news. Just comply with this new CovidPass system, and we won't lock you down again. The lockdown was all about trying to train and break the populace into compliance. CovidPass plans to launch in September. Well, that's the end of international travel for me then. It commits to mandatory carbon offsetting for each of its passengers to preserve the environmental benefits of reduced air travel during the crisis. There you go. Right? Isn't it just a massive coincidence how all of this overlaps, right? There's an overlap between the restrictive new normal measures introduced for COVID-19 and all of the climate change agenda policies. The left has been obsessed with reducing movement of people and infringing on our liberties in the name of reducing carbon emissions as part of their climate change scam. It's two birds with one stone. But I'll get into more of that in an upcoming video later this week. Finally, I want to conclude by recommending the YouTube channel of Anna Brees. She's a British journalist who used to work for the BBC and ITV. She's doing some fantastic work on this manufactured crisis. I'll also include her Twitter so you can follow her over there. But one of the things I really appreciate that she's doing is She does this thing where she allows her audience to send her their videos and tell their stories, how lockdown and the economic shutdown has affected their lives, and when and why they started to question the mainstream news media narrative. She's giving ordinary, everyday, working British people a voice and letting them be heard at a time when the general public are being ignored, and it's really inspiring and encouraging. More than anything, it's helping a lot of people realize that they're not alone in their thinking and in their suspicions and skepticism. So be sure to listen to these videos and follow Anna's channel. Thanks very much for watching. Be sure to share this video if you can, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.